So guys, can you all see Akshat's screen? We are very lucky today to have Akshat spare some time for us from NLS Bangalore. As you all know, Akshat has been a star student and student of the year. He has AIR 5 in the CLAT exam. And what was your AILET rank, Akshat?
Ma'am, 6.
Yeah, so 6 in the AILET exam, single digits. And goes without saying that Akshat has been a remarkable student. We have shared the story so many times that Akshat has been the sometimes the only student in class, and that's where you see that's why he is where he is. Uh, just a little FYI, all of you are enjoying mocks this time, and the RCP mocks have been doing well. That's largely because you know our students, Ananya, Akshat, and the rest are tirelessly contributing to the mocks. So I thought that Akshat should take one session with you more as your senior and friend rather than a teacher, because he's just done it himself. He probably understands what you all are facing in terms of understanding passages, the issues you all have with coming to the right answer, how should you understand the central theme. So today he's taking an editorial article, and maybe next week we can request him to take up a mock question or a mock passage, from one of the practice mocks, and maybe quickly just discuss his approach to solving it. So over to Akshat, and he'll be discussing a couple of editorial articles, reading, probably sharing with you what all you should read, and maybe you can ask him questions, on the reading schedule or RC solving schedule. So over to Akshat.
Yeah, so thank you, ma'am, for that introduction. Hey, everyone. I am Akshat Agarwal. And so basically, I went through a couple of videos where Prima was also discussing how to read an editorial, basically, and how to answer questions to that extent. And so I've selected this editorial from the Indian Express for today's class. Let's just not call it a class because that makes me feel very weird. Yeah. So I've picked up this. You guys must have been aware of what the Kerala court made a remark, and they said that so basically the charge of sexual assault will not stand if the woman's dress is sexually provocative, quote unquote. And this is what the editorial is about. Not that you would require prior knowledge in your CLAT examination, but uh, being conscious about what's happening in your country and what's going on, how the jurisprudence works, I think that helps a lot. So I'll share this before I begin. I'll share this with you all. So in my CLAT examination 2021, we got a passage on cryptocurrency, and in CP mocks we had done a lot of passages on cryptocurrency, so that was quite easy to navigate. So that's the whole point. If you're aware of things beforehand, that gives you an edge. So let's dive right into it. So I'll show you one paragraph one by one, and then I'll take your views on it, like what you can infer from it and what do you conclude. And then we get on to basically how to, gauge the main idea of the passage, what the author is talking about, right? So this is the first paragraph, the world into which boys are born. Just let me know once you've finished reading it. Till but should we? Just let me know. right? So I can see people commenting that they've done reading it. So what do you infer from the first paragraph? It just sets the tone for the passage, and what does it say? Can anyone comment something? Anyone? Some ideas? What's talking about? So what the first passage usually in any RC or CR paragraph, what the first passage usually does is that it it sets the tone for what's going to be the main theme of the passage. One thing to be very careful about is that do not get into this habit of concluding that what is written in the first paragraph is the main point of the author, because most of the times it's not. Right. So here, like I can read Sanchari and Sindhuja's comments that the author is trying to highlight how men are placed on a pedestal and what comes out of their mouth is considered gospel truth. Right. So that's why the author says that, and both can get away with it. In any case, we must love our heroes with their flaws and faults. So this is a narrative that is sold to a lot of us. And then comes the question that the author asks, but should we? So these kind of questions you may encounter in a lot of passages. They're basically rhetorical questions, right? Watch out for them, because these questions will tell you what the author is going to talk about next in the passage. So what we can infer is that now the author will critique this narrative, that we should not assume that our heroes are without flaws and faults. In fact, this assumption of men being our heroes, we should question it. So that is what the author is going to do. So we're going to move on now. So again, same drill. Once you're done reading this passage, the paragraph, just let me know. Right. So I can see that you guys are done. And someone put in the question, what is prima facie? So does anyone want to try before I tell you what's prima facie? Or what is the meaning of the word prima facie? Okay, so right, yeah, facts establishing a crime. Yes, yes. So basically, what prima facie means is that on the face of it. So, so what the author is trying to say that the Kerala court, superficially, on the face of it, it has said that a sexual harassment charge would not be attracted if the woman was wearing a sexually provocative dress, right? And another question I received was, what is misogyny? So misogyny, anyone wants to define misogyny? Although that I really don't think that misogyny itself can be summarized in a sentence, but misogyny is basically your deep-seated prejudices and discrimination against women. So misogyny is basically, it simply means in Latin, simply means, I think, mis means hatred, and geny is used for women. So it's like hatred for women. That is misogyny. So what I want you to note here is that, so the this passage begins with the observation of the Kerala court, right? So do not assume that the entire passage is going to be about what the Kerala court said, right? So this is you're going to face this a lot in your RC passages, particularly when you're asked what is the main point of the author. There will be one option which will be too specific, and there will be one option which will be too general. So the main point of the author is not just the Kerala court's observation, and the main point of the author here is not just misogyny. The main point of the author is that to basically assess this argument, sexually provocative dress. What does it mean and why it is used and why this statement is misogynistic? So you can gather this from the last line, the everyday misogyny of this legal argument will endure. And that is what the author is going to talk about. The reason why you need to be very careful about these sentences is that they will let you know what the author is going to say. So now when I further read the passage, I have some idea about what the author is going to talk about. So I can gather that the author is going to talk about misogyny and how a woman's attire is judged in the society. So once you are able to form this opinion that what the author is going to talk about, keep that in mind when you read the passage further, because that will help you understand the passage better. So if there are any doubts beyond this, just let me know in the chat box, and we're going to proceed to the next paragraph. Again, the same drill, just let me know once you're done reading it. I see Hasika is done. Some more responses and then I'll begin. Right. So can anyone say what is the purpose of this passage? Like why does the author talk about that a woman was raped off in Canada, and what was the judgment in that case, and what an Italian priest said? Any idea why the author does this? The main objective, yes, I would say it's strengthening the premise by giving you examples. So this is what a lot of authors do, is that at the starting of their passage, in order to buttress their argument, they give you a lot of facts, a lot of instances from history, like what has happened in the past and all that. So this is what this passage is also doing. It's basically telling you how with like how the victim's attire is judged when it comes to a sexual assault crime or something like that. And then the author gives you instances, like in 2006 this happened, 2012 this happened. Just keep this in mind that whenever you encounter a lot of facts in the passage or a lot of dates in the passage, skim through it. Okay, just understand the main argument that, okay, so here I know that the author is giving me some instances from the past, right? So even if you do not read each and everything, like what it happened in Manitoba, Canada, it doesn't matter at all, right? So just skim through this and keep this in mind that this is where the historical instances are discussed. So when you basically get a question which is a specific detailed question in the passage, which says, okay, something along the lines of, so why does the author give Canada's example or Italy's example? Then you can come back to this and maybe read it to answer the question. but do not lose yourself with facts or instances or something like that. Right. So just let me know if you've grasped the main objective of that passage, and we can move to the next paragraph. Let me know in the chat box if you're done reading the next paragraph. Right. So now what the author is doing in this paragraph is that the author is now contextualizing everything with respect to India. So in the previous paragraph, the author gave us instances from different countries, and now the author is bringing the question to India, and how this question, this argument, but what was she wearing? This is asked in almost all instances of sexual assault. So this is now where the author is coming to. And can anyone tell me what is meant by these lines? Born out of pungent patriarchy that is hardier than it appears. Right. So, so pungent here would basically mean something which is very biting, very incisive. So this question of what was she wearing, that is an attack on the integrity of the woman, right? And when it says it is hardier than it appears, basically it talks about how this question is deep rooted in patriarchy, which basically wishes to deny the fact that the woman has suffered so much. So that is what the author is basically trying to say over here. And now let's move on to the next paragraph. So just keep in mind the different themes that the author discusses. So at one point, the author is talking about how there's misogyny in basically in the dress of the victim, and how this question, these all these questions are how they're deep rooted in patriarchy. So the author is talking about misogyny, about patriarchy, about how this is basically this is like the judges talk about this in law while delivering judgments. So keep all of this in mind and proceed with the passage. So now what the author is doing is, I'm assuming that you guys have read it. Just let me know if you have not. Right. So now what the author is doing is that the author is engaging with the rationale behind asking this question. Why is a woman's clothing scrutinized whenever there's a case of sexual assault? So just look at now look at how the author frames this. dismantling it clinically would require flipping the question itself to ask, why do men do this? And now it may happen a lot of times that you can't make sense of what the entire sentence is talking about. Like, for some, it may be like, you don't understand why has the author used the word clinically here? What is the author dismantling? The point is, don't lose yourself with, because there will be a lot of questions, there will be a lot of passages which have very difficult English, in the sense that the sentence is framed in a very twisted manner. But I would say that don't just lose your focus because of that, and keep reading on. So the point is that even if you understand the main argument of the author and what the author is talking about in a particular paragraph, and if a question is asked on the basis of that paragraph, at least you can eliminate the wrong options. So now you know that here the author is questioning this trope of the women's guilty dress, right? So this way you can see which options fit in this main theme. That okay, I have to argue against this idea of women's guilty dress. So what are the options that say the same thing that the author agrees with? So focus on that. And does anyone want to go ahead and tell me what's the meaning of the disdainful scrutiny of female clothing? The word disdainful. Just you can type in the meaning. Yes, lack of respect, condescension, and all of that, right? So now this is a very like a paragraph I found really interesting. This one, just give it a read. Sexual arousal and so are its consequences. Right. So again, here again, the author is questioning how this idea that okay, it's because of the women's clothing, so we could not control ourselves, and we went ahead with such a heinous crime. How this can be argued against? So the author says that this visual spark matters more in the case of men, but see again, there's a rhetorical question: can it break the barriers of self-control? So that is how the author is looking at the other side of the argument as well. So this is what most authors do. They will present their argument, then look at counter arguments. So this could be a counter argument that there are experimental studies that support that the visual spark matters more in the case of men. But then the author challenges this as well, that have no doubt that men can check themselves unless this ability is impaired by injury or intoxication. And this justification that the man might have been intoxicated and that's why he did it, that is also the author is again, that is also is challenged by the author. The author says that, but then drinking is a man's choice. So how can this serve as a justification when what you're doing is by your own choice and then you are liable for its consequences, right? So this way you can gauge how the author is proceeding with their argument. So let's come to the next passage. And yeah, just let me know if you've not understood the meaning of a word or something, or the meaning of a line, what it's trying to say. type it in the chat box. So just note one thing, that till now the author has not reached his what he is trying to convey, as in what solution the author proposes. So keep this in mind while trying to read the passage. Mostly it is the case that when the author talks about a problem, the author will also give you solutions or will give you ways how to address that problem. And that could help you reach the right option. Because if the question is like, what is the conclusion of the passage, or there's also a type of questions which say that which of the following will the author most agree to. So for such kind of questions, refer to what solutions the author is answering. We'll come to that as well. Just let me know if you've read these 3 lines. I think they're pretty easy. Yeah, so basically here again, the author is responding to, the author is basically trying to justify how this assumption by men that since the woman was wearing a sexually provocative dress, so we are not liable for that. How this is wrong. This is a cognitive distortion, right? So this is what is basically mainly said here. I think that was pretty easy to interpret. Just let me know if you've not been able to. Now look at this. Just read these 3 passages in the these 3 paragraphs in their entirety, and let me know once you're finished. And also, while reading any passage, for instance, watch out for the tone of the author. So I'm not strictly talking about that question of tonality which comes in. What is the tone of the author? Is it critical? Is it whatever? Just think of the broad idea. So broadly, you should classify a tone. A tone could be subjective, or a tone could be objective. Then a tone could be very emotionally charged. Those tones are different. And a very reasoned tone, a very argumentative tone is different. So keep those things in mind. And to be very honest, even I struggled with the question of tonality. I even after I think when I was almost done with the Clat prep, I still did not know how to differentiate tones. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is that broadly focus on how the author is presenting the argument. So is the author very emotional? Is the author very reasoned? Is the author objective while presenting the facts? Or is the author bringing in his or her own opinion? So watch that as well, because that will also affect the questions that are asked, right? So if some of the options go against the tone of the author, if the author is being subjective about something and the options are objective, then you can eliminate them. So that is another way of how you interpret a passage. So just let me know if you're done reading these small paragraphs. Right. So I can see some people have done. Yeah. So basically, so again, I think this passage again, it's connected to sorry, this paragraph is connected to the previous paragraphs as well. How basically this assumption of around a woman's dress is perpetuated in the society, right? What I want you to focus on is what comes next. So here in this paragraph, the author is trying to understand why this narrative is pushed forward. And the author is saying how this is normalized as well. So just let me know if there's some line that you found difficult in this paragraph, this one. Yeah, sartorial, anyone? Can someone tell me the word sartorial? Okay, why I'll proceed while I wait for your response. So what this is saying is that this uh, the biases that we have about women's, we put that above their consent. That is what it means by sartorial cues. Yes. So like what they're saying, on that basis, we assume whether their answer to our advances is a yes or a no. So this is what the author is trying to say here. Now, in the next paragraph, what the author is trying to understand is that why it's normalized. And look at this last line. The only way then is to get in the trenches and fight atomized misogyny in close quarters. So this is where the author is saying what should be done. So this is that solution thing that I was talking about. And so what this line basically means is that the author is saying that at a very micro level, we need to address this misogyny related to a woman's clothing. So now, so once you're able to understand what the author is going to do next, see, this is what happens. Author will talk about something in one paragraph, and usually the last lines of that paragraph will tell you what the author is going to talk about next. So this way you can categorize your paragraph. Okay, in this paragraph, the author was discussing the solutions. In this paragraph, the author was discussing the problems. So when you get a question, let's say a question is about what the problems that the author discussed. So then you know which paragraph to go back to. So keep this thing in mind while you skim through your paragraph, right? So now the author says how girls have been, how they are conditioned, but no one says anything to the boys. So this is what the author is now going to talk about, how we need to engage in conversations with the boys, with the darling sons, the author, which the author puts in quotes. So just finish the passage here till our heroes speak and let me know. Yeah, so a few people have done. Now, just note one thing that the author from here on says that we need to focus on a very micro level. to address this problem of misogyny pertaining to the women's clothes. So here is how the author is substantiating her point, dismantling the myth that the female form is right. So I would like to know, what do you infer from these lines? This is a very important paragraph, I believe. Why does the author say that the female form is some dangerous, corrupting weapon? Any thoughts on this? Right. So I believe there's a lag between what I'm saying and your responses. But anyway, so what the author is saying here is that this myth that we create regarding a woman's attire, that if she wears a sexually provocative dress, then the men who are so feeble-minded, they're gonna get corrupted, and basically it's not their fault that they're going ahead and assaulting the woman. So this is what the author wants to dismantle, that that the female is not the one who's corrupting you or is someone who's dangerous to your morality. Yes, so I think you guys pointed out right that Aarti says because men think that the way of dressing is the problem. Correct. That is what the author wants to dismantle. Now, looking at the next few lines, so the author is now, this is the solution part of the author, that there should be daily conversations in schools, homes, and safe spaces where the darling sons are raised. And one question which could be asked here is that why is the word darling sons in quotations? Because this is a very recurring question in a lot of passages I've seen in my Clat mocks during the preparation as well. So why do you think that the word darling sons is in quotations, is in double quotes? Yes. To highlight the privilege, sure. And the main reason is that the author is also delivering some sarcasm here. So you'll see that whenever some words are randomly put in quotes like this, so the author is either making an emphasis or the author is trying to put in some sarcasm. So if you understand that, you'll be able to pick the right option, the option which says the author is being sarcastic about how the men are the sons, the men are protected and they're treated as like they're innocent and they can't do anything wrong. So that is why maybe the author has put them in quotations. So it could be sarcasm, it could be emphasis, it could be anything. So this is a very common question which I thought I could address. And so now, did you notice that here the author is talking about what needs to be done at the micro level, and in the next passage, the author says not that big bang efforts will not be needed. So the author is not just saying that we only need to work on the micro solutions. We also need to look at the big picture and work on the macro solutions. Getting it? So if you see an option which says the author focuses only on, let's say, having conversations with the sons in their homes and schools, you'll know how to eliminate that option. So moving on, the author says, for starters, how about guidelines to explicitly address the admissibility of a woman's clothing? So this again goes back to our main issue, the main problem that the author has with basically with a lot of judgments, and particularly the Kerala judgment, that why is it that the clothing style of a woman is factored in while discussing a sexual crime. So this is a macro solution that he proposes, that this admissibility of this kind of evidence should be abolished, should be questioned. So why do the courts even admit this fact, and why is it even relevant what the woman is wearing? So this is what the author is trying to say here, and the author concludes by simply saying that in the meantime, let us rewrite the dialogues our heroes speak. So heroes here basically again refers to the boys, the men, and what we tell them and what narratives they produce. So this is that brings us to the end of the passage. So this is what the editorial was about. Any questions regarding the editorial? Some words that you did not understand, some sentences, and I hope you had some takeaways from this session, because I did not want it to be just about Clat and picking the right option, but understanding the issue as well, what the author is saying in this whole passage on what this issue regarding the misogyny behind a woman's dressing is about, especially when it comes to a case of sexual assault. So I hope this gave you some perspective as well. And any further doubts, anything regarding the preparation, something. So Anshika, on that question, to be very honest, I cannot categorically say what was the exact tone of the passage. I would never frame it that way. The reason being that it's the options that you give. So what I can say, that the tone was very, very reasoned. It wasn't just about the author being angry or being emotionally charged about about the issue, but the author also offers a lot of reasons and a lot of solutions to the problems. So keep the broader things in mind and try to eliminate those options of tonality which are very off-putting. So this question of tones will always be there, to be very honest. I mean, I remember having a lot of debate and discussion over it. So yeah, I hope so. If you want to know the tone just of any passage, just focus on the options and eliminating the options. That is the best approach. What do I prefer, the Hindu or the Indian Express? That depends. For my Clat preparation, I focused on the Hindu articles, but it's completely up to you, because the objective of the newspaper reading, the editorial reading, should be to improve your reading speed and your comprehension. So it doesn't really matter what particular passage or what particular newspaper you refer to, but that you understand what you're reading. So yeah, you could go with analytical, maybe. So yes, I think I'm pretty much done. Survi ma'am, if you would like to comment on something, I would be happy.
Thanks, Akshat. I was listening to the whole session and you did it so beautifully. as in, I was I was sort of mesmerized myself, and I hope the students understood the issue, and they understood the way you explained words, the way you explained the significance of not really getting trapped into, a single word or a few lines, but rather moving on and answering questions, and then of course tones and their significance. So all in all, it is something, that I would have probably said myself, if not better. So it's something that I, that I would have discussed this as well. The significance of using a word or not using a word, sometimes those choices are purely arbitrary, so getting caught up in all of that is not a very good
Yeah.
idea. And this was one thing, and as I said, I hope you will be around for a few more of these sessions, and maybe we can schedule some mock analysis with you as well,
Yeah, sure.
right? So and I hope all our students had a good time reading this article with you, and more and more students will be reaching out to this session during the course of the night. So
Sure.
and I'm sure they'll also be quite uh, amazed at how the session went. So thank you so much, Akshat, and thank you so much for all those of you who were able to join in for the office hour session today. And we'll have something coming up next week as well. So please stay tuned in over here. And we have pretty much fixed the days. Thursdays we are keeping for legal. Fridays typically for reading and editorials in English. And of course, you have your daily GK coming up on YouTube. So thank you, Akshat, and
Thank you, ma'am.
all
Thank
of
you
you
so
have a
much.
great evening ahead. And you too,